May 21st, 1927, after 33 hours of nonstop flight alone in a wicker chair, fighting hallucinations, ice, and fog, Charles Lindbergh successfully lands in Paris, completing his solo flight across the Atlantic, and the world is enraptured by his feat. Oh. Among those caught up in the excitement is James Dole, namesake of fucking Dole, Dole pineapple juice, Dole whips, Dole bananas, all that. To bring attention to, and tourism to what was then considered a bit of a backwater, Dole puts up a $25,000 prize to the first pilot that can successfully make the trans-Pacific flight from the continental United States over to Hawaii. The interest in the prize is overwhelming. So further rules were put down, and the Dole Air Race, or the Dole Air Derby, was officially on. The most important rule changes were that any pilots vying for the prize must register and pay a $100 entry fee, and no contestant could depart for Hawaii until noon on August 12th. All in all, there were officially 15 entrants. Dole had hoped that Lindbergh would take on the challenge, but alas, Lucky Lindy declined. Though, we don't need that baby-losing anti-Semite. Given the outcasts and risk-takers involved in the early days of aviation, I could be here all night talking about the various characters involved in the Derby. So let me pull out three major players. First up is Art Upside Down Gobel, a founding member of the 13 Black Cats stunt troupe. Aviation daredevils for hire in motion pictures and anything else as long as the money was good. In my estimation, Art is the best pure pilot involved in the whole affair. Art, holy shit. During a test flight ahead of the race, he noticed a shock absorber in his landing gear was damaged on takeoff. Left as is, this could compromise the plane when landing, and with it, his hopes will stick in place, creating a quick and dirty autopilot. He then leaned out the door of the cockpit with a knife in hand, while hanging upside down, cut away the housing of the shock absorber, and completed some emergency repairs, and was only almost blown out of the plane by a gust of wind. And then Art landed without a hitch. Fucking incredible. That is Art, baby. Also of note is Martin Jensen, a barnstormer that at the time of the race worked as a tour pilot in Hawaii. While only a recent transplant to Honolulu, he was considered the hometown hero, and the residents of Hawaii were rooting for him. Unlike other crews who either had a sponsor or existing wealth they could use to purchase a plane for the race, repairs, etc., Martin had none of that. He instead spent the lead up to the race running up and down California, raising money, and desperately searching for a local plane manufacturer that could build him a plane at the last minute. While he was in California, his wife Peg was going around Hawaii raising funds from the locals. In a stroke of luck, Martin was able to acquire a plane that someone else, uninvolved in the Derby, failed to pay for in time, though the whole adventure left the couple in deep debt. Lastly, you cannot talk about the Dole Air Derby without talking about Mildred Doran. She easily became the most famous aviator involved, and was also the only woman to formally participate in the race. At the time, Mildred was 22 and working as a school teacher in Cairo, Michigan. Her mother died when she was 16, and she spent a lot of time helping to raise her siblings before going away to college. Her godfather, William Molosca, was a big presence in her life. He paid for her education and helped her discover her passion for aviation. Along with running a chain of gas stations, William also operated a local airline. Mildred was constantly catching free flights between Cairo and Flint to visit her family. Mildred was desperate to participate in the Derby and convinced William to sponsor a plane for the Dole race. He commissioned a plane that was eventually dubbed the Miss Doran. Mildred's youth, charm, good looks, and backstory made her an instant hit with the newspapers covering the race and the general public. While she was only riding along as a passenger, given she had no training on how to fly a plane, she was confident, exuberant, and able to give the papers perfectly newsworthy quotes, such as, "Why is it people always expect you to act noisy and masculine if you're interested in flying? Femininity is a girl's biggest asset, no matter what kind of work she does nor what kind of sport she chooses for a hobby. Why, if I hadn't been, well, feminine, I never would have had all those lovely hours in the air, which I managed to obtain at Flint. I never even would have had this trip." Now, you may be thinking, Aaron, hey, your last name is Doran. Are you related to Mildred? Well, that's a great question. I did some genealogical research, and we are not related. That would have been something. Thank you. Anyway, to go along with the beauty, charm, and other fashionable outfits, Mildred spent much of the pre-race festivities in a custom-tailored pilot's uniform designed to look military chic. Across her breast pocket, where a soldier would normally place medals and other commendations, she had a row of fraternity pins, saying, quote, "They represent dead scalps and show what I got out of a college education." They were all fine fellows. Now, in classic Aaron Talk fashion, it's time for the rug pull. On June 29th, 1927, First Lieutenant Lester Maitland and Navigator First Lieutenant Albert Hagenberger successfully completed their journey from Oakland Municipal Airport to Wheeler Airfield in Oahu, becoming the first men to make the nonstop trans-Pacific Hawaiian hop, undercutting the glory of the Dole Derby contestants. The flight was arranged by the U.S. Army in part to test radio navigation equipment that Hagenberger helped develop. In a fun fact, Hagenberger Road in Oakland, the one you see on the freeway, is named for Albert. There's also a Maitland Drive that ends at the Oakland airport. Despite being beat to the punch, the prize money is still there for the taking, and the race continues as planned. I keep pressing the up button. Well, almost as planned. Due to concerns around airworthiness of the planes remaining in the race, the contestants agreed to postpone the race by 4 days to allow for repairs, further test flights, and I say remaining planes because of the original pool of 15 entrants, only about half make it to the starting line, engines humming and thumping in time. This table shows the 8 remaining contestants and their takeoff order. Among the dropouts was an entrant who brought an owl, Colonel Pineapple, to assist with night flying. Another entry, the Pride of Los Angeles, crashed into the San Francisco Bay during its final approach into Oakland. Beat LA. Luckily, the crew was unharmed. In a bit of tragedy, another entry, the Spirit of John Rogers, crashed into a San Diego mountainside en route to Oakland, and the crew was killed. While the risks were well understood, there was now a pall of death over the proceedings before they formally began. One thing you'll notice on this table is that nearly every plane included a navigator. Between the limited fuel each plane could carry and Hawaii being a small target, a competent navigator was vital. I put together a couple of maps to illustrate what I mean. It's not the most scientific, but I think it gets the point across. The black line on this map is a direct line between New York and Paris, the cities Lindbergh traveled between. You can see from the red lines that if Lindbergh had drifted off course, which in worse weather he absolutely would have, as long as he cleared the Atlantic, he had a pretty good chance to be above land by the time he ran out of fuel. Now this is what the margin of error looked like for the Dole racers. After 2,400 miles, if you miss Hawaii, you had nowhere to go and are basically fucked. You've got no choice but to try and make an ocean landing and hope a search party finds you before your plane or emergency raft sinks. Now that the stakes are fully raised, it's time for takeoff. First off the line was the Oklahoma. They had no trouble getting in the air and disappear over the horizon for a bit. A short while later, they returned to Oakland Municipal Airport. Their engine was overheating and the risk of fire was just too great. Next on the runway was the El Encanto. As you can see, it crashed during takeoff. Fortunately, no one was injured. Next is the Pabco Pacific Flyer, piloted by Bay Area local Livingston Irving. I love this image that shows the wreckage of the El Encanto while the Pabco intended to get airborne. However, the Pabco was overladen with fuel and could not stay in the air, so Livingston had to abort the takeoff. On a second takeoff attempt, Livingston only made it about 50 feet in the air before crashing back down to Earth. He was also unharmed, despite being in a plane filled with gasoline. Next is the Golden Eagle, easily the fastest plane among the competitors. It takes off with no issues and heads out into the Pacific. Next is the only biplane in the race, the Miss Doran. Their trip to Oakland ahead of the race was challenging, stopping frequently due to engine issues, including an emergency landing in a field near Fresno. Their takeoff from Oakland is uneventful, but like the Oklahoma, they had to turn back due to continued engine problems. Augie and Villas make some hasty repairs while members of the crowd implore Mildred to stay behind, but she's committed. They take off again, clear the Farallon Islands, and continue out over the ocean. The Aloha has a clean takeoff, and Martin Jensen and Paul Schulter make their way for Hawaii. Next is the Woolaroc, piloted by Art Gobel. They are a work of art. They take off with no issues. Last is the Dallas Spirit, and another clean takeoff. But sometime later, Bill and Alvin returned to Oakland. The siding on the plane's fuselage had ripped away, and they could no longer safely make the trip. Woo! Too soon. So, okay, that's a lot of information. So, to recap, we have now banana split the competition again. Thanks, Bree. The four planes left attempting the Hawaiian hop are the Woolaroc, the Miss Doran, the Golden Eagle, and the Aloha. It took Maitland and Hagenberger about 26 hours to reach Hawaii, so now all we can do is wait. The next day, the first plane to land in Hawaii is the Woolaroc. Congratulations to Art and Bill. All right. Overall, their flight was uneventful and perfectly executed. The Woolaroc was one of 4 planes of the 8 that had radio navigation equipment, and Bill Davis just expertly kept them on track. They landed with hours of fuel to spare. Well done. Second to arrive is the Aloha. The hometown boy pulled it off. However, Martin and Paul did not have nearly as easy as a journey. First, the Aloha was not equipped with a radio. Second, and more importantly, the navigator Paul had never been in a plane prior to being hired by Martin, and therefore only knew how to navigate by sea and not air. Whoops. This meant that Martin had to fly low to the water. At one point, he tried to gain altitude to clear some cloud cover, and the Aloha went into 3 consecutive dives. At one point, the Aloha was so close to the water that a wave clipped the landing gear. Ships. They also had to circle for 2 hours above open ocean, waiting for light and clear sky to get their bearings. Airships. After that, everyone was stuck waiting. The day came and went with no sign of the Golden Eagle or the Miss Doran. The Golden Eagle had a radio, but it was only able to receive, not transmit. The Miss Doran had no radio at all. So there was no way to tell what fate befell either crew. Prize money was handed out, but the celebration was, of course, subdued. A massive search party supported by the Army and the Navy was put together to find the missing aviators. After they were able to repair the damaged skin of the fuselage and scavenge a 2-way radio from the Pabco Pacific Flyer, Bill Irwin and Alvin Eichwalt took off from Oakland to fly across the Pacific and search for their missing compatriots. They took a big risk for a small chance at success. But they knew the crews of the Golden Eagle and the Miss Doran would do the same for them. During the flight, they hit bad weather and radioed out a mayday that the Dallas Spirit was in a tailspin. Then another transmission that they were able to recover. Then another mayday and another tailspin. This time, the radio transmission cut out mid-message, and the Dallas Spirit was never seen again. None of the missing aviators were ever found, and I'm sorry there isn't a happier ending, but bravery requires risk, and it's not risk if you never lose. There were occasional claims that someone found a body part of an aviator that washed up on shore. Claims that someone found a message in a bottle from Mildred were also tragically common. None of these claims were ever considered to be credible. The race's death toll did lead to an amount of backlash, and even Dole regretted not pushing for additional safety measures like mandating 2-way radios, but that's the way of aviation. Every regulation and safety measure is written in blood. As we close, I want to highlight a... As we close, I want to highlight a quote from the Boston Daily Advertiser about the race. If Mildred Doran is today a ghost, she is a ghost which regrets nothing. Let her fellow women be proud of her, but not pity her. Pity is rather to be accorded to those who have lived long and dully ambitious for nothing save food, shelter, and petty diversions. So with that in mind, let us all chase adventure and our passions like these lost souls and the many, many brave aviators of the past who challenged the wild blue yonder. Thank you.